going to have our hands full. So we won't have time to focus on
I want to start out by also thanking you for your support. Believe me, we hear thank you for your service a lot, and I would throw it right back at you. We enjoy a tremendous amount of support here in Culver City, and I thank you very much for that. So I'm talking about drones, and I'm a sci-fi enthusiast. I'm a sucker for any sci-fi, good or bad. And I recently watched Blade Runner. I'm a big fan of that movie, the first one and the second one. And there's a drone that pops off the top of the police officer's car in that movie. For those of you who've seen it, who's seen that movie? Sci-fi fan?
Well, hello. Okay. It was very good information. We were asked at the last minute if they could have an opportunity because of the impending council meeting and the high profile on the issue. But at this point, we want to start the candidate forum. I'm going to get out of the way. And the format that we're using is really a question and answer, but first we had asked these candidates if they would give an opening comment, and we asked to do that. We're going to ask 3 minutes each, and also a 2-minute closing comment. We've collected questions that our two moderators, Rich Kissel and Rob Greenspan, are going to be asking, and we've also, so that we can control the time response, we've got, each candidate has been told 1.5 minutes, and we've got a sign that says basically 15 seconds left, and then one that says time's up, and we're going to cut it off at that point. So thank you all for coming, and two, for the time. We'll try and keep this as speedy and efficient as possible. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rich Kissel, and I, along with Rob Greenspan, will be your moderators tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. We do have a lot of wonderful people in the room tonight. We have several former mayors and council members and commissioners in here. And thank you all very much. This is a very tight-knit community, and we appreciate everything that all of us do, including you who are participating tonight. Just a couple of things here that we want to bring up. Number one, you'll notice that we have some cameras and microphones in the room tonight. And actually, my friend Ken Mant, who is right over there standing up with the iPad in his hand, will be recording this tonight. In fact, he will not only be recording it, and you'll find it posted on YouTube after the event, but it is being streamed live right now on Facebook. And if you go to Facebook or if you go to YouTube and look at Culver City Live, do a search on that, it will pop up and you'll be able to look back and see all of the candidate forums that are in Culver City. This is a new service that Ken is trying out. It seems to be pretty successful, so we thank him for being here tonight. Let's see here, we already took care of the timing signs. Margarita will be working with that. And with that, let's see here. There's plenty of water in the back over there, and candidates, we gave each one of you some water over there. And just so that you're not embarrassed when you're choking on your own words, these are the new type of flip tops over here, all right? It may take a little getting used to, but right, as you're struggling with them to try and twist them off, they don't do that. So, but we have plenty for everybody, and they do fold all the way back like this, okay? So, but there's food back there. There's also, the candidates also brought with them tonight plenty of literature about their campaigns and how you can get in touch with them and everything, and how you can participate more in their election. So please be sure to go to the tables and take that stuff home, because I'm sure they don't want to carry it home with them tonight. So we have our 4 candidates. These are the full 4 candidates that are running for the election. We have Daniel Lee, we have Alex Fish, we have Marcus Tiggs, and we have Albert Beer here with us tonight. So thank you, gentlemen, all for coming. We're going to start tonight with our opening remarks. 2 minutes for the opening remarks, and we'd just like you to cover a couple of different things in here, if you would. Things like, when did you move to Culver City? Which commissions or committees or service organizations have you worked with? Why are you running? And will you have the time and flexibility to perform your duties while you're on the job? So we have a starting order here tonight, and
it's going right down the line.
It starts right down the line, starting with Daniel Lee. Daniel, please.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks everyone for waiting for us while the police department did their presentation. I'll try to be brief tonight, but I want to make sure that I get to as much of the information that you want to hear as possible. As Rich said, my name is Daniel Lee. I've lived in Culver City since 2013. I've been a resident for 15 years. During that time, I was first most civically engaged with the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee. A number of former members are here tonight. I was also a chair of that committee. I think beyond being on that committee, I've also tried to actively participate with both the Planning Commission when there was an issue that I was passionate about. The Parks and Rec Commission actually made a suggestion for community conversation that they're moving forward with in the next few months. I'm regularly at City Hall. I've worked with Culver City Community Coalition on a number of local issues here. I've worked with the Sierra Club, principally in their Clean Break Committee, on a number of issues around the Inglewood oil field transitions to renewables from fossil fuels. I've volunteered and worked with Culver City Action Network, principally around sanctuary city issues here in Culver City. I'm running because I come from a family that has a history of service. My grandmother was in the Montgomery bus boycott. I was originally born in Opelika, Alabama, and originally grew up in Alabama and Florida. I'm sort of steeped in civil rights history, and that history is a history of openly advocating for others across the board, but principally for those who are unable to advocate for themselves for whatever reason, be that ability or finance or whatever. And that's sort of my approach to public service. I currently work with the James Lawson Institute. It's an institute that teaches campaign strategy across the country. My principal workmates are the Reverend James Lawson and Dr. Mary King. We're a new nonprofit, but in that role, I more or less telecommute, or I occasionally fly out of the area for events. So in terms of flexibility and availability, I am more available because I'm primarily working from home. So for any type of city subcommittee meetings, sustainability subcommittee, a parking subcommittee, I am able to shift my schedule around to meet those duties. And of course, I am also available to go to our 7 to 10 hour city council meetings that occasionally happen. I think I've seen many of you at some of those meetings where we leave the city council at 2 a.m. and I hope to see you at those meetings again and get your vote after April. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is, on the ballot, you'll see Hardin Alexander Alex Fish. I just wanted to get the longest name out there. But yeah, I was, Hardin didn't really work at any point in my life. I wasn't going to make it through junior high school, so it's just Alex. But I've been a homeowner in Culver City for 13 years. My 2 kids are in Culver City schools. I have been a member of the Committee on Homelessness since 2015. I'm currently the chair of that committee, and in that committee we've taken really broad brushstroke strategies that the county promulgated to deal with what's a fairly overwhelming crisis right now, 57,000 people who are experiencing homelessness. We took these broad brushstrokes of policy, identified the spaces where the county suggested that there was a role for cities to help, and we developed, we are working with staff to develop and implement programs that will get people off the streets and keep people in their homes. We received budgeted amounts for 3 different programs last year that were brand new that we came up with because of the 47 strategies that the county promulgated. Right now we're working on a landlord incentive program to encourage people to give people with housing choice vouchers a chance. And also we've created an ordinance that is currently under consideration by city staff to provide more economic opportunities for people transitioning back into the workforce, disabled, veteran-owned businesses, and small local businesses. I'm running because I believe that we're sort of at a fulcrum moment in the city's history. There are some neighborhoods that are feeling crushed by public and private investment. While it's a wonderful opportunity, it's also a little overwhelming. Other neighborhoods have been sort of neglected by all the the investment from both the county for transportation and that sort of thing, and new exciting stores that you can walk to. So I think it's time to harness all the change that we're experiencing for our common good and make sure that the whole city is benefiting from the changes that are affecting all of us. I think that if we want to retain the diversity that so many people treasure and retain the sense of place and livability of the city, we need to take some affirmative steps to make sure that we can provide and preserve housing for people of all income levels and while keeping that livability. And in terms of time and flexibility, I left a pretty lucrative career in the private practice of law to work in the California Attorney General's office doing environmental enforcement work. And that is a lot less time consuming than being a shareholder at a law firm. Even on my worst days of work and attending city functions, I still make it home for dinner with the kids. So I have time, I have flexibility at work. Sometimes litigation happens, but that's the exception to the rule. So I definitely have the bandwidth to do this. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hold the button down for 2 seconds. Sorry.
Thank you. You didn't include that in the instruction. Good evening. My name is Marcus Tiggs. I've lived in Culver City with my family for 27 years. I was on the Planning Commission for 8 years. I was a chair. Fiesta La Bayona Committee, I've been on that committee for approximately 13 to 14 years. I'm kind of forgetting how long it's been right now. I was the chair for that 2 consecutive years, 2016 and 2017. In addition to that, I'm a member of the Centennial Celebration Committee. I am the chairperson or the subcommittee chairperson for the time capsule. And with the time capsule, as most of you know, we celebrated our 100-year anniversary in 2017. So I was responsible for, with the assistance of 5 or 6 other team members, collecting items, cataloging items, and then ultimately presenting it to the city so for our legacy and for our descendants to see what happened 100 years ago. In addition to that, I'm a member of the Citizens Oversight Bond Committee for the Culver City Unified School District. In that committee, we're making sure that those bond dollars are used the way you, the voters, expected them to be used. I'm a member of the Exchange Club. So as you can see, I've been very, very active in the community. My activity in the community didn't start last year, didn't start 5 years ago. It started 14, 15 years ago. Why am I running? I'm running because I believe I still have a lot to contribute to our community. And I think I can be one of the 5 members on the city council to make the policy decisions that are necessary for our city. At the same token, I believe very strongly in listening to you, the voters, and what you have to say. I did run before, and it was a humbling experience, and it's humbling right now because the ideas that you have are very important for electeds to listen to. We can disagree on stuff, and I like to say, I embrace disagreement. You probably ask, why do you embrace disagreement? Because with disagreement, we can probably come up with a better solution than having basically a group think. I don't feel group think does much of anything. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel of the U.S. Army, combat veteran. I've had command positions as well as staff positions. I mentioned staff positions because we have to, as a staff officer, you're required to work with other officers that come from diverse backgrounds, diverse political opinions, just completely different people. But at the end of the day, we have one common goal, and that's a mission. As a council member, that one common goal of the council members is to our quality of life and continuing that. I am a bankruptcy lawyer. I've been able to make time to do these be on these other committees and commissions, and I'm sure I can have time to do this. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank everybody for coming out on this cold evening, and thank the Culver Crest for putting this on. My name's Albert Vera. I first moved to Culver City in 1965 when I was born. I've been here ever since. It's a wonderful community. I raised my daughter here. There's nothing I don't love about Culver City. In terms of my service with the city, I've been on the Landlord-Tenant Mediation Board. I'm currently a commissioner on the Civil Service Commission. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the YMCA. I'm also on the Exchange Club. Chamber of Commerce as well. But more importantly, I'm really a board member of the Upward Bound House, which is really a great organization where we take families off the street. It's a rapid rehousing program. We take families, place them in our housing, give them the skills they need, give them whatever assistance they might need, whether it be medical, help with getting licensed, help with whatever, paperwork to get their, to make them legal, whatever it is that we can do to get them back out into a house and into our permanent house, something that is theirs. Since July, we've taken 60 families and got them housing. Out of those 60 families, they had 11 children that we placed in housing that are our Culver City school children. So 11 children that we really took off the streets and gave them housing, which is a great thing. Why I'm running? I'm running because I'm passionate about my city. I'm running because I love my city. My city is giving me everything from my ups to my downs. As a community, I have never come across a community that has been more supportive and more understanding and caring and forgiving of another person. I'm running because I care. Yeah, in terms of flexibility and time-wise, but more so why I'm running. You know, I'm really running for so many different reasons. I think it's really a crucial time in our city where we need to come together as a community. We really need to come together, and it's not about me, it's about we. What we can do as a community to create a city that we all are proud of, and that we're proud to say, I live in Culver City. And how can we achieve that? I think by each and every one of us collectively coming together and really creating something that we're really proud of. In terms of time-wise, I have a great staff at my store. I can devote whatever time that I need to the City Council and to every resident of Culver City. Thank you very much.
The candidates have been told that the process is going to start with Mr. Lee and work down the table for the first question. The second question will start with Mr. Fish and will progress so each participant will have the opportunity of speaking first and sometimes being last. So with that in mind, each one of the candidates is going to respond to this question in turn, 1, 2, 3, and 4 down the line as we proceed. The first question, Mr. Lee, deals with traffic, and although there are traffic jams all over Culver City, Overland Avenue at Sawtell and Ranch Roads are particularly bad, with drivers ignoring blinking lights, pedestrians, and drivers attempting to enter or exit all of the Crest streets. One resident complained that at 5 p.m. it took him 20 minutes to get from his home to a business on Sepulveda at Jefferson. Recently, a Crest resident was hit by a car at the intersection of Ranch and Overland. Please direct your answer with particularity to the Overland Avenue travel from Hannum to Jefferson. We'll have additional questions about traffic in general and your proposals, but for this particular question, please address the area of immediate concern to the Culver Crest residents. Mr. Lee?
Sure, and I guess I'll start out by saying what I said 2 years ago. I know it wasn't necessarily popular with everyone within the Crest, but I think from a practical perspective for both safety of students here at El Rincon and to eliminate the sense of uncertainty that comes with going with the blinking lights, we need to talk seriously and do a traffic study around installing actual streetlights. I think it's really important, particularly since this school is right here in operation and there are after-school activities, for us to make it clear when a pedestrian or bicyclist or a family can cross the street. I think this would also have either a positive impact or a negligible impact on the actual traffic. I actually personally think it could actually improve the rate of traffic at these particular intersections, but I would be happy to defer to an actual traffic study. My motivation comes primarily from a safety perspective, and I think from a safety perspective, an actual working street light rather than a blinking light is the only option.
I have two sort of guiding values here. One is that neighborhoods should have some say over the traffic conditions that affect them most. Obviously, it's a citywide issue, and so we need to take account of other people's needs to get through, but you're the ones who are most affected, and I think that it's important for the city to develop processes that encourage neighborhoods to come together and sort of negotiate this stuff and study this stuff among themselves. That's what we did in Rancho Higuera. We're in the process, through that organization, we managed to get $1.1 million from Culver Studios as part of their expansion. And maybe it'll work out. The city's now looking at that with the broader public need in mind. So I think that getting your input is one really important guiding principle. The other is safety. I think I'm a big proponent of street safety. I walk, I ride a bike, I drive, I take transit, all at various points in the week. Very frequent user of each mode of transportation. So I have the perspective that I'm not just a victim of windshield bias. I'm not just a middle-aged man in Lycra, a mammal. So I do think that I'm open-minded to the traffic signal because I know that the traffic engineer has said it's warranted in traffic terms, which means that there's the volume of vehicles that would say it's worth, that it's merited if you decide, if the city decides that it meets your values. But we need more study and we need the community's input. And I think it could improve circulation overall, but it will depend on what the study says.
Safety is key. And on top of that, I feel the frustration that you have trying to get out of your house to go to work or go to the store or whatever the case might be. With traffic, we hear about it being a regional problem. That's correct. We hear people are going from point A to point B and they need to use the road as well. That's correct. Also, on Overland and Sawtell, the blinking light, what I suggest, and the technology is there, maybe the test will be have a light signal there that at certain periods of time it does the blinking that you're all familiar with, and then maybe during other periods of time it's a regular green, amber, and red. And then the traffic engineer can tweak it and we kind of see how that works out. On Ranch Road, I've been mentioning this low-tech thing for a while, is maybe a traffic control officer for a minute to basically control some of this stuff during the rush hour. Safety. That's safe, and then at the same token, it maybe alleviates or reduces some of the frustrations that you have trying to get out of your house. It is frustrating. I have it trying to back out of my driveway, worrying about getting hit, let alone trying to get where I need to go. Thank you.
I also agree. It's all about safety and keeping our children safe. You know, I found out the other day that one of our crossing guards is missing here at Ranch Road. I mean, that's insane, really. How are our children going to cross to get to school? But more so than that, I think really they need to reconfigure the streets. I think it's imperative that we have signals here. The flashing red worked in a day, I guess, when we had less traffic and things were a little calmer. It's a different time right now. We need to really, the city needs to really think about seriously putting signals, taking the Ranch Road flashing red and putting a signal as well over here on the corner of Overland and Sawtell. I don't know that there's any way around it, and they need to reconfigure the street somehow. And I'm not talking about taking away a lane of traffic either. Something can be done where we still maintain the lanes of traffic, get traffic through here, but slowing that traffic down and making it calmer. It's like playing Russian roulette, trying to get off of Ranch Street on certain hours of the day. You know, am I going to make it across? Am I not going to make it across? So I think, excuse me, I think it's really, in my opinion, no other option rather than putting two signals in on Overland. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you also for bearing with some of our longer type of questions here. I know they sometimes sound like essays, but part of this, of course, is to help educate you folks as well as what some of our issues are up here as well. So bear with us here. One of the things that, of course, that's plaguing all of Culver City is the LAX overflight issue. Now that over 600 flights a day fly over Culver City, what role do you see the council playing to defend our homes from noise? Culver City has experienced increased noise from LAX traffic overhead in the last few years, and an additional flight path which directs some of the aircraft off the northern arrival route that runs through Culver City to land on the south runway complex has been implemented, and it is at least 40% closer to Culver Crest than the usual north arrival route. Despite our complaints, Culver City is experiencing more flight traffic with little prior disclosure from the FAA. What's your position? What do you see that we can possibly do to defend ourselves against this?
I've spent a lot of time learning these 4-digit codes for waypoints and reading agendas from and approved minutes from the roundtable, and I appreciate the expertise that that group brings. So I have to give a lot of deference to them. I think that what I have learned and can say is that the city needs to support. I think the city is right to continue the lawsuit for now. I think the city is right to continue to pay a lobbyist for now to try and get an accommodation that's fair. I also, the Next Gen program, I do acknowledge it's not all bad. It saves a lot of gasoline, which is critical, and it shortens flight times for people. But I know it's intolerable for some people, and I've also learned that some of that is because of new jet engine technology. That there's a deeper frequency that is resonating in some homes. So it's a complicated issue. But I would continue the lawsuit, continue the lobbying efforts. I think that the city needs to be a little bit more proactive and actually work with other jurisdictions that are participating in the roundtable to make sure that there is space for the roundtable to meet, perhaps opening up City Hall on a rotating basis so that they have a place to meet comfortably. And I think that a city council member probably needs to sit in on those roundtable meetings because it is really, they've done so much work and it's complicated, and you have to know that city council actually understands the issues and is advocating fiercely and fairly for you.
The city was wise to initiate the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is pending against the FAA. There are some other municipalities actually who want to join in on the lawsuit that we have. Selecting or hiring a lobbyist to look out for our interests, that was a wise course of action as well. Having eyes and ears in DC and lobbying for what we need as far as mitigating the noise in some of the flight paths. We need to continue to put pressure on the state officials, Congress people, etc. Because this is a fight that we started spending a bulk of money, and we need to continue the fight. And I think hearing from you what's going on in the Crest and how it's impacting you, continue to let us know so we can continue this fight. We're not going to give up, and we're not going to give up on this issue. Thank you.
I believe it's really about education and dialogue. The roundtable is great. We need to really keep a pressure on them. We absolutely continue the lawsuit. Lobbyists is an excellent way that we're going about it. But really to continue the lawsuit, but more so than that, really get the community involved. It's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We really need to be proactive about it and have the council really take a greater stance on it and really drive the message home that we're not going to stand for this anymore and do everything we can do. I found it the other day that they moved it, the flight patterns south, so it's directly over the head of the crest. So you guys have to be dying up on the hills. So we really need to really be proactive about it, get the community involved. I encourage everybody to go on Facebook or on the app and really start documenting all these flight paths that come over. And it's just the more documentation, the more paperwork we have, the better it looks when we actually present everything. Thank you.
I think the city is moving in the right direction when dealing with the FAA. It's a huge bureaucratic behemoth, so the fact that we are currently engaged in a lawsuit against the FAA in conjunction with a number of other cities around the country is moving in the right direction. I think, unfortunately, we're not going to come out with a clean win here, but I think if the pressure that Culver City for Quiet Skies has been putting both on the council and the roundtable at LAX continues, we will move the ball forward. One of the things that we were recently informed about is that they're considering making a change so that the representatives on the roundtable would both be members of the Culver City Council. I think part of that idea makes sense because I think it makes sense to have people who have actual semi-legislative power to do something within their city's jurisdiction are represented. But I am also concerned that a lot of the people who are doing the work, who are doing the research, and who live in the neighborhoods that are most affected by these flyovers are not there in a more of a power position to talk about the issues that they're experiencing every day. So I would advocate that we had representation at the LAX roundtable that was made up of one Culver City Council representative, but one member of the Culver City public who's been actively engaged in this issue.
Next question, Mr. Tiggs to start. It's a short one. Are you for or against allowing residents to rent their homes or rooms in their homes through Airbnb or similar rental options?
Short question with a long answer. All right, okay, first of all, let's first start with quality of life, okay? Quality of life is why we're all here. So, the issue that I have, I'll just tell you one issue I have is the short-term rental and the regulation. We've been studying and studying and studying. It's taken over 2 years, and we're still studying it. People are using Airbnb and similar platforms in our city, and we're not getting the tax revenue from it. Practically speaking, and to directly answer that short question, is that I am against it if the property owner is not living in the property. In other words, I am not for a situation where you have an Airbnb type of house there, next door to you, we'll say, but the property owner doesn't live there. It's just like a hotel that's moving on and on. I'm in favor of it, basically, if the property owner lives there and they share a room with Airbnb or a similar platform. This platform and this additional income helps some of our seniors, and it's kind of like affordable housing in a way because some of our seniors cannot afford to pay their mortgage or etc. But with this, it assists them in additional income.
I'll make it a shorter answer, but I'm for it, with the exception that it does have to be owner occupied. You know, in walking and meeting these people, I met this elderly lady, and she was really concerned about the Airbnb, about her back house that she's renting out, and that's really her only means of financial income at this time is what she's getting in for from the Airbnb or from her back house. And she's worried that the 90-day moratorium or the 90-day limit that the city wants to impose is really going to affect her quality of life, and she might have to move out of her house now because she won't have the really money to pay for it. So we really need to think long and hard what we do as a city that's really going to impact a lot of our residents, a lot of our aging residents who really count on this as a means of support. So I am in favor as long as it's owner occupied, and we need to really move forward with it and think about all of our residents.
Yes, I am in favor of short-term rentals. I do have some concerns, however. Many of the candidates who've already spoken have voiced some of them. I think the concerns come from two sectors primarily. One is the hotel owners who are concerned about the occupancy of their hotels. The others are people like me who are renters who are concerned about their rents going up because an owner of a particular apartment building or house can make more money if they rent it out using Airbnb. I think there is a way to balance those concerns. I'm not sure if the city's 90-day limit is the way to do it. I would advocate for owner occupancy, but I think it's something that we need to basically make a decision on in terms of what regulations we're going to have, and then we need to study it to see, did things play out the way that we thought they would? What were our expectations? And then we're basically going to have to change it. A lot of the stuff that we're looking at right now is based on suppositions and not based on actual data. It's based on fears from a number of different sectors. I think once we have a little bit of time and some actual information to go on, we can alter our policy as need be.
For all the time this has taken, this is not a knock on council. This is a complicated issue, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the city. But it's actually not that far along. You can look online at the webpage on this, and you'll see that in July or August, sometime last summer, there was really the second meeting on this subject, and there's a discussion draft regulations that have a lot of blanks. So, City Council, has a big job ahead of it. I do not support a ban of short-term rentals in Culver City for the reasons that people have expressed. This is a critical source of income for some people. We have yet to ascertain whether it's being abused. I don't think, from what I've seen, that it's really impacting housing affordability yet, but that's pretty anecdotal. We need actual data to inform our policies. That doesn't just apply to Airbnb, that applies to good government. Additionally, I support I support banning corporate ownership. Airbnb is a full-time business. This should be, sharing. It should be as close to the sharing economy as we can, not as a new form of hoteliering in our city. Which brings us to the transient occupancy tax. It sounds good to have that, but depending on the regime that we come up with, the regulatory regime, we have to make sure that it makes sense. Or is the cost of hiring another person to enforce transient occupancy collection covered by the collection or not? Thank you.
I guess it's my turn. Okay, gentlemen, please. What about the future of the city finances in general? How do we stand? And if you could specifically address the city's looming pension obligation, and if that's still a heavy concern, and what other things should we be most concerned about? I think we start with Mr. Vera.
Currently, in talking to Jeff Muir, he's financially saying we're looking good, but this is not for the long haul. We're looking good maybe for the next couple of years. Once we have this one-time money that sort of disappears from the development that's going on right now, the fees and permit fees and everything that the city is really building right now, those fees are going to go away. That one-time money is gone. We can't rely on that. We have Measure Y that's due to sunset in 2023. It's imperative, I can't stress it enough, that we do not allow that to sunset. We have to keep that on the books. If we don't, the city would be really in hot water. We would be bankrupt, essentially. We need to be really wise about our money. We need to attract businesses in the city that are going to create the revenue and create the revenue that we're to pay for the style of life that we've all been accustomed to. We need to really think long and hard about what businesses we bring into the city, where we place these businesses. We get a lot of taxes, utility taxes, sales taxes from our local businesses. We really need to nurture that relationship with our businesses, attract more of them in the city, and continue to spend our money wisely, keep the reserves where they're at, build upon the reserves so we have that for the rainy day that's bound to come.
So Culver City financially is generally in good position thanks to moves like Measure Y. We did not suffer as much financially in the financial crash as many cities of similar size. That being said, our sales tax is sort of high. If the Culver City residents really want Measure Y to continue, and I personally think it should, this is as an individual voter, not as a city representative, then I think we should continue it. But in the whole process of talking about our finances and the budget in general, we should look for other revenue streams. One of the things that I push a lot in my campaign platform is the notion of community solar. The Culver City Unified School District installed solar panels and saw a return on their investment within a short number of years. If we had community solar on a number of other different city buildings, we could see a similar concern and possibly actually sell power to our residents as a means of generating funds for the city. But we should also look more deeply into doing an audit of the community benefit that we get from large clients in Culver City. Sony in particular has been a very good neighbor, but since we have people like Amazon and Apple Studios coming in to our city, can we make a larger demand in terms of community benefit that would financially benefit the city's budget, and can we use Sony as a model?
You can see right now online the mid-year budget report. It's a part of Monday's City Council agenda, and it has been a great year for Culver City. But when you dig into the details, a lot of the successes so far, we're way ahead, well, millions of dollars ahead of where the projected budget was. Not many millions, but it's so far a good year. But if you dig into the details, these are one-time revenue items, and there's highly cyclical revenue items, permit fees and licenses, better than expected sales tax. You also see some decline in user utility fees for things like landlines. So there are changes in the tax mix because of changes in people's behavior. There are not so much changes in the revenue items from the new developments that have come in. They're not exceeding performance especially. So I think with that money, it's important. What I would like to see happen is to set it aside, to look for opportunities when the inevitable downturn comes, to enhance our public wealth, to expand the broadband system that we're building right now to homes and create a new source of user utility fee. We're always going to be shackled with higher sales tax and user utility fees because of the low property tax that we receive back from the county. It's a long story, but that's just an issue. So it's good, but it's a lot of one-time stuff and a lot of cyclical stuff. Long-term, we need to focus, I think, on the area around the Expo Station to create really a destination city without creating a lot of traffic. There's a high opportunity for walkability and interest in that neighborhood. The pensions are coming. It's inevitable, and there's really nothing we can do because they're vested pensions.
We are doing well. However, as a bankruptcy lawyer, I always kind of look that the economy just doesn't keep going up. We do need to be prepared for that rainy day. Our general fund budget is about $120 million, of which probably about half of that's funded through business entities: utility user tax, business license tax, sales tax, and transit occupancy tax. So when the economy kind of messes up, sometimes we lose on those taxes, and that can impact our general fund. The underfunding of the pensions is a big issue, not just for our city, for cities throughout the state. At some point, we need to start thinking about socking away some money for when the state comes to us expecting us to pay our share. Measure Y was mentioned. It's going to be sunsetting. And now is the time for electeds to start educating the public, you the voters, and not assuming you're just automatically going to say, yes, continue it. We need to be transparent and tell you what we've done to reduce costs to the extent we can, and how we have increased revenue streams.
Can I just chime in here for a second here? Just to keep everybody in the loop here on the understanding of it. Measure Y, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the 0.5% sales tax in Culver City that we have, that we enacted as an emergency measure some years ago? And that does sunset when? 2023. 2023? I get confused between that and Measure M and some of the other ones, so I just wanted to make sure everyone else had an idea of what that was. And also, we mentioned a couple of times through here, TOT, or transient occupancy tax, and that is basically a hotel tax that is charged for all the hotels under the auspices of helping to improve and contribute to the city services and things like that. So, thank you, sorry.
No problem. I don't need them. Okay, I promised I'd get back to the parking, traffic, and the metro. What do you suggest the city do to help prevent gridlock from increased density and traffic going into and out of our city or going through our city? Something like bicycle paths, traffic calming or lane reduction, ride sharing, reduced parking requirements for large industrial or housing developments. Where are we with respect to this gridlock that we are suffering and looks like it's only going to get worse? Mr. Lee, starting with you, please.
So this is probably the hardest question to answer in a minute and a half. Not that any of them are easy.
Why don't we extend this one to 2 minutes then?
Sure. I think the big crux of this, for me, from a philosophical perspective, is our traffic policy has basically been constructed to get as many people through Culver City as possible for a very long time. I think if we altered that focus to make it so we can divert people to the large thoroughfares that are on the extremities of our cities as a means to get them through, but that we create a city that has already become but which can be more of a destination. In terms of making sure that that destination is a place that people want to stay, we need to improve our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure so that if we build these developments where we lower parking requirements near transit centers such as the Culver City Metro Station or the West LA Transit Center, which is at the Fox Hills Mall, then we actually have the bike lanes that do not disrupt automobile traffic that will get people from place to place. One of the issues with the Metro Station in downtown Culver City is that from a family or even a date night perspective, if you get off the train and you walk to downtown Culver City, you're sort of in the dead zone for a while. You can walk on Venice, where there are a couple things, you know, if you're heading in and out, but that's Los Angeles. But if you walk on Washington Boulevard, there are businesses, but they aren't businesses that cater to walking or bicycling traffic. If we could build a corridor or program a corridor from a city or chamber of commerce perspective that would guide people into the incredible, exciting things that they could do downtown, and we could have bicycle infrastructure to get them there, I think we would do a lot better. The bike share that's starting this year will help us get closer to that goal.
I've been an advocate with Bike Culver City for a number of years, and it really should be renamed, Walk Bike Culver City, because it's not. It does have that connotation for some people as some kind of like wild-haired bicycle advocacy group, but it's really about traffic safety and providing options for people, and that's the only future that we can really work towards, is giving people options. Because cars, the problem of cars is a problem of geometry. Cars are large objects, and until there's political acceptance of solutions that encourage people to share their cars or encourage people to get onto high-quality transit, we will have a lot of traffic. I take issue with the term gridlock. That's a term that Sam Schwartz, who's one of the original traffic study guys in New York City, devised for a very specific problem where the cars literally were stuck in the streets. That we could be headed to gridlock. We're not there yet, believe it or not. So we do need to provide options. People need safe, comfortable, enjoyable, pleasurable options. And I think we need to focus on the areas where it's most immediately possible to demonstrate what the future could look like. And that really is probably around the downtown area and around Fox Fox Hills, where you have the opportunity to create interesting walkable spaces that aren't loud interventions in the neighborhoods. I don't think there's any preservation society for the area between the train station and the downtown restaurants. That is an area where, for example, in the Willett Hope neighborhood by Del Taco, the Del Taco district.
Yes.
We could try some interesting zoning rules there with no parking minimums, with mixed use. Just go ahead and take an old building, adaptive reuse ordinance, just like downtown, revitalized the historic core, and made one of the most interesting and exciting transformative experiences in the Los Angeles region. Now, obviously, every neighborhood's different. We're not going to go up the hill and say, you guys need a convenience store on the corner. You're going to have a walkable neighborhood now. It doesn't work. So there has to be sensitivity. But the possibilities for some parts of the city to provide more options, I think, are very exciting right now.
In providing multiple modalities, whether it's walking, cycling, things of that nature, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for people to say, I want to ride my bicycle to downtown Culver City from Fox Hills. So we need to, in my mind, we need to look at the fact cars are going to be here. So it's going to be reduced at some point as time goes on. But what do we do with it now? Because I'm dealing with the traffic right now. I would say, high-tech side, we look at platforms like Uber Movement, real-time traffic data. I emphasize real-time traffic data. I was on the Planning Commission for 8 years. And you've seen one traffic study, you've seen them all. Either it's going to be, they have a lot of money, they're going to put a new control signal, and they're going to put some big computers in there so it communicates with other control signals. Or it's going to be, we're going to restripe the lines, or we're going to increase the pocket. Or they're going to say, we really can't do anything to solve this, so we'll just give you a little bit of money for some sort of fund. Low tech, I mentioned it earlier. Maybe on some of these projects where there needs to be mitigation measures, have the developer give us some loot for that traffic control officer for some key intersections. Let's see how it works. Might not work at all. I might be completely wrong. Or it might work a little bit. When you have that one truck that's in the middle, blocking everything, maybe if a traffic control officer was moving things along, that would make traffic go along a little bit better, and the streets be a bit safer.
I think in a perfect world, I would love to see the city have a parking lot, so to speak, and have a robust dash system. People can park off-site out of the city or just on the outskirts of the city, and really create a dash system where we bring people to and from their vehicles. I know they do it downtown LA, and it seems to be really beneficial for a lot of people down there. One of the guys working in my store used to work downtown LA, and that's all he used to use is park off-site, use the dash system, get to work. It's a great system. But I think more so than that, we need to really create walkable neighborhoods. We need to encourage development that's coming in to really create something that the family can say, hey, let's walk down to the store, let's walk down to the movie theater, or whatever it is. If we truly want to be out of our cars, we need to create areas where we don't need our vehicles, so we can walk, whatever it is we need to do, we really need to encourage that. Create walkable neighborhoods. Bike share program, when it comes in summertime, I'm really excited for that and see what that brings our neighborhoods. I would love a more robust bus system. We can either do a dedicated bus line or a flex line. Take the center mediums of Sepulveda Boulevard, Washington Boulevard, create something that's reliable, trackable. I think the more reliable the system is, the more people are apt to use it. They have the technology now, you can track your Uber, well, we can track the bus too. I mean, it's already here, we just need to really start using it and implementing it. What else? I think that's it. But in terms of walkability, create neighborhoods, create a walk that's enjoyable. To walk down Overland Boulevard by MGM, that's a horrible walk. You got this concrete building. I mean, I know it's time and space and money. If we had all of that, we can solve all the problems in Culver City. We don't. We need to start small, and we need to really think about our neighborhood and how walkable we can make it.
Thank you. Our next question is regarding mansionization. The City Council and the Planning Commission have recently interceded in Culver Crest neighborhood neighbors fighting over new home construction, size, style. Where do you guys stand on this? And should we have design standards, or should we prevent different types of styles? And specifically, of course, in hillside neighborhoods like Culver Crest and Blair Hills, do you feel that the Planning Commission and the Council have adequately addressed the very different circumstances of hillside residences and construction there, as opposed to from the flat sections of Culver City? Mr. Fish, I believe it's your turn here, according to
This counted, okay.
Thank you.
I think that's actually 3 questions. I think it's mansionization, hillside ordinance, and ADUs. I've looked at the draft, well, I guess it's now final, the hillside study, and I think it's really good. I know that there's a lot of input coming in from the community, which is also really good. It's important to hear neighbors, because this is such a specific plan. I mean, you're talking about gradients and specific parts of streets. Really, this is where my belief that government needs to reach out to people and take account of your input. It's a great example of it, because the Hillside Neighborhood Plan is site-specific when you get right down to it. Eventually, an ordinance is going to have to make that reality, and so that's a whole process that's now underway, and it's just transitioning into that. So I think it's on the right start. Mansionization, again, this is another competing interest thing. There's currently interim, the moratorium should be extended. That's on the calendar for Monday for development in Culver Crest. A year, that ordinance that I just referred to, City Council needs to get to work. They need to get it done within a year, because you're also, when you have a couple year moratorium on building in a neighborhood, you're also constraining people's dreams, right? So City Council needs to get the job done over the next year. As for mansionization, as I said, it's balancing competing interests, and I think there have been some unintended consequences of that interim regulation, because it only applied to R1, so it's pushed mansionization into R2 neighborhoods. That's a neighborhood zone for duplexes, so you have the absurd result of lots within a half mile of the $1.5 billion that the public has put into our train, giving us an expo station. We're getting $2.7 million houses there. That really should be for, I walk to the train station when I go there 3 days a week. Other people should have that opportunity instead of filling lots with giant boxes. So there's currently someone working on that, on the right design balance, and I think we'll just have to see how it looks. I fully support that. The City Council's hiring that consultant.
Like most things, in a way, it boils down to safety and balancing the rights of property owners. Clearly, the Crest, your neighborhood, the hillsides is different than the flatwoods. So the floor area ratio would normally be different. It shouldn't be as large as maybe what it is right now on some of the hillside properties. Grading regulations, clearly different on hillsides than lowland properties. And the placement of ADUs, clearly, are different on a hillside property than a lowland property. I think receiving the feedback from the community, like the council is doing, receiving the feedback and reports from the experts and consultants is very helpful as well. I think the product that the council has come up with is a lot better than what we had before, which we didn't have anything that was specific for your area. I think it took a while for it to come about after the problems we had in 2005, but I think it's a very, very good start. It's progressing well. We need to complete it so we are not having to do another moratorium.
I think a certain house on Crank sort of led to most of this conversation and really why we are where we are with the city. I think it's really important that the Planning Commission and the city really get it right for the safety purposes. I believe really we need to balance the right of the homeowners and also the right of the preservation of health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. We really need to, it's a balance that we have to follow, that's what's good for the neighbor. You know, you're invested in this house, you bought it, you should be able to do with it what you want, but we have to be in reason. What fits the neighborhood in terms of safety and health and welfare of the overall fabric of the neighborhood, of the community. You know, I was reading that I think our current FAR is 25% greater than most other cities on hillsides. Shouldn't be like that. Culver City should be really above and beyond, up to standards on everything. We really need to really take a look at this, make sure that our Planning Commission gets it right and the council gets it correct. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell for me.
I think if anyone's ever watched the news in Southern California when we've actually had a rainy season, we know that there should be stark differences for building regulation between houses that are on flat land and houses that are on a hill. When I first moved here, it was one of the first really bad El Nino years. So I would watch the news and watch houses fall down onto other houses or people on a regular basis. So I think we've taken some steps in the right direction when it comes to hillside development. But I think we must also take into account the fact that not every hillside is the same. I think we need strong regulations that take into account the size of the structure, the stability of the hill, and the proximity of the structures and people below, and any type of alterations that we make to the regulations going forward. I think it's obvious that safety is the primary concern, but the real concern that we're talking about is either the people in the houses losing their lives or the people below losing their lives, and that's something that we need to prevent at all costs. When it comes to mansionization, I actually think that's a conversation that the city hasn't fully had yet. I've seen a number of instances in neighborhoods throughout Culver City. One of the things that people like to talk about, no matter what issue you're talking about, is the sense of community that they feel in Culver City. And to some degree, a huge aesthetic break when it comes to architecture in a neighborhood takes people out of that. But on the other hand, if you've worked all your life and you built your house, you feel a sense of community because it's your house and it's your dream house and it's what you want to do. We need to find an adequate balance. I think I would be in favor of asking the community more broadly if they would be in favor of requirements and restrictions that specifically maintain that sense of community on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis.
Okay, next question. There's currently a building moratorium in Culver Crest, yet the community development manager approved what's called an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, which is probably more commonly called a granny flat. Now, it seems clear that what was the intent of the council and what the residents asked for in asking for the moratorium. Do you think that it's appropriate that the community development manager has the authority to override staff and approve an ADU for a developer during a council mandated moratorium? That question would go to...
I'm not jumping up because I have the best answer. No would be my response. I don't see why the manager would override the council if that was what you mentioned, Rich. I don't see that as being appropriate. That's my response.
Mine as well. I mean, there's we have due process, and that's why we go through the certain steps. So, yeah, no, I don't think that's right at all.
On the surface, I would agree with my fellow candidates here that I do not think that's right, but I would want to know the particular circumstances, because as we know with any type of a construction, there's a very long process that people go through. So if this were something, for instance, that was in process prior to the council enacting a moratorium, I could see why it would go through. But in general, if it was something that happened after the moratorium, I would be against staff being overruled by one individual.
It's not particularly brave, since I'm last, to say that I don't have the background necessary to give a clean answer to that question. But I will say, I think it's important that council take account of its legal risks and the whole context when it's making decisions. And I could say that last year the state passed some pretty strict rules about accessory dwelling units as part of dealing with the coastal California housing crisis. And it really is an example of how if we don't take advantage of the general plan process that's coming up over the next 2 years, we're redoing the whole blueprint of the city as a community. Please come and participate, no matter who wins. If we don't take seriously the housing crisis and try to figure this out collectively, we are going to continue losing local control to Sacramento. And this, I think, it sounds like it's an example of where not having, maybe not having a lawyer who went to UCLA Law School and clerked for a Ninth Circuit judge would have, probably hurt the city's deliberations, and maybe we got stuck in a situation where council felt constrained by state law, and maybe the moratorium wasn't quite 100% airtight.
In November, our community will vote on whether to consolidate our local nonpartisan April elections with the partisan general elections in December. How will you vote and why? Mr. Vera.
Although consolidation might sound like it's a good idea, I think when you really look into it, it doesn't work. I think what it does is provides a way for big money to come into local politics, local campaigns. I know the purpose behind it. You want to try to increase voter turnout. I think the city is doing everything it possibly can in terms of voter turnout. I mean, how much easier can it be to vote? You get your ballot in the mail, you mail it in, and that's it. So, I mean, people, I think, really generally need to get involved and get active. I don't want to see consolidation and having, like I said, the big money move in and affecting our local politics. It already costs quite a bit of money to really run a local forum, local race, as we can all attest to. I think doing so in consolidation, we would have to raise double the amount of money that we are right now. So I'm not a big proponent of it.
I'm fully in support of consolidating elections for a number of different reasons. One, it has been shown across the country to increase voter turnout, and I think with increased voter turnout, we would have an electorate that's more representative of the city in general. Also, as a resident of Los Angeles County, I get really annoyed on those years where we vote like 5 or 6 times. I'm happy to do my civic duty, but I think it's more likely that I might forget one time if we vote in March and then we vote in May, then we vote after the primary in June for what we voted for in March, and then of course we also vote in November. I think for a lot of people in general, we have families, we have jobs, we have other commitments, we have civic groups, we have social engagements. So if we can pinpoint the time that we can vote, I think we will have a more engaged and more cohesive community in general.
I will vote in favor of consolidation also. I've had a number of conversations with people who are supporters and who I agree with on many, many issues, who are anti-consolidation, who like the special election, and I respect those opinions I get the arguments. I'm always open to new ones, but it's very hard for me to look past the fact that when you consolidate elections, you get 60 to 83% turnout. We've talked about getting turnout up. We've heard a number of plans, mail-in ballots, vote on Sundays, use the charter city status. It's been 100 years, people. We haven't done any of it. So let's be serious. Let's be democratic. Let's extend democracy. We know that voter turnout is 20-25% in local elections. Worse for school board elections. It's going to be 60 to 85%, depending on whether it's a statewide general or a presidential election. That's a good thing. It's a 350% increase in the participation. It's a virtuous cycle. I know that some people can't participate, or you know, they just don't prioritize it. I've made that mistake myself, and I'm ashamed of that. But if you're working 2 jobs to make rising rents here, you shouldn't be hauled out every few weeks to vote. This year, you're going to vote on April 3rd for your assembly member, and you're going to vote on April 10th, hopefully for me. We know that people look all the way down the ballot. You can look in November. There was a local, highly esoteric local measure, Measure CA, along with a bunch of other local measures. At the very end of the ballot, 57-page ballot, people voted on Measure CA differently than they voted on the other measures. That means that they looked all the way down the ballot, they read the ballot statements, and they made an informed decision. People may not have agreed with it, but the fact that they voted differently proves that they informed themselves. They went to the polls, and they voted in way bigger numbers than we're going to get for the city council election. 18,000 people voted on Measure CA. We're going to have 5,000.
Okay, as far as consolidation, I'm going to put my lawyer hat on. I'll just tell you up front, I have trouble with consolidating our elections. And that is because of the local control. We're a charter city. If the elections are consolidated, we're not going to have 14 forums talking about your candidates. We might have 1 or 2. We're competing with the other ballot measures that are on that consolidated election. Studies show that there can be voter fatigue. If we're at the very end, if the council member or the special ballot measure for Culver City is at the very end of the ballot, yeah, maybe everyone's coming to vote, but they got burnt out. And what are they? Are they really an educated voter? Putting the attorney hat on, at the same token, I don't want our city to get sued if we don't consolidate. I don't want our city to get sued over this thing. As far as it being more expensive in having our off-year elections, in a way that's a fallacy. Costs a little bit more money, but we're not saving that much more money in consolidating the elections. Thank you.
Let me do a quick follow-up, and I'd like 60 seconds in the same order. On the same question, does the significance of Culver City issues and concerns get drowned out by reason of competing with the state and federal issues on a consolidated election?
I believe they do. I believe yeah, I do. I believe so.
I believe if people really care about an issue, they care about it whether or not an election is happening. So the notion that their passion around this issue would be drowned out because there are other issues going on just doesn't make sense to me. I come from a lot of my work from an environmental perspective. I'm passionate about the environment, whether it's November or March or June or December. People who are passionate about what they care about and people who care about their community care about their community 365 days, 24/7. So if there is something that is really important to them, they will come out and they will vote.
You're talking, I think, about a problem for candidates. The candidates are the ones who have to get our message out. The 5,000 people who vote in every local election are gonna vote in every election, every local election. They're gonna look to the influencers that they usually look to, and they're gonna read the same things that they usually read. It's the candidates who are gonna be working harder. We have to find volunteers, which is incredibly hard. This is a hard thing when you're trying to get people to do stuff. It's amazing that they do it. So that is a challenge, but I think that y'all are very engaged. You're here tonight, and I think you'll be here in October if if the election's in November. And I think Culver City Live, the folks here who are streaming this tonight, are pointing a way forward. This is a pretty exciting development. We've got people who are going to be able to watch this throughout the election season and really get to see the differences between the candidates. A lot of things were very similar, but other ways were very different. There's plenty of ways that people can slice up the four of us, and I think they'll be able to do that whether they're also thinking about the president.
Having the off-cycle elections allows us, Culver City voters, to focus on Culver City issues, whether it's candidates or whether it's a measure. So that's why I think consolidation, what that'll do is, though we can still do that, but there's going to be more fog for that voter. You're not going to necessarily be able to spend as much time as you would normally be for an off-cycle elect Culver City election.
Great. This question has to do with paving and sidewalks. First, let me make an announcement here. We've had a discussion, and at our last meeting, we had Charles Herbertson from Public Works come in and speak to us about our roads, and there were some questions that were asked about paving. Just so everybody knows, I got an email 2 days ago from the city, and it appears as though they will be paving Ranch Road and Lugo Way coming up in April and May. So, and all the citizens, residents of the Crest will be getting notification on that. But along with that, we've had consistent problems with getting roads paved up there. After years of different repairs going on, water pipes, sewer pipes, and a number of other things. So the question here is sidewalks. There's a huge backlog of repairs for all of our sidewalks and the tree roots with all the big, huge trees that we have there in Culver Crest. What ideas do you have to help improve this service? Do you think that Measure M funds will be enough? Measure M was the half-cent sales tax that was put up by the county, and it expires, I guess, in 2039, but then it jumps up to 1%. So are you happy with how the city handles the repairs and the tree removal in our city and our sidewalk repair? Do you anticipate any changes? Do you see any improvement in that?
I'll take it. I think we don't have any orders on our question sheet, but I'll go first. So yeah, it is all about money. We quite frankly, I don't know that we have the money in the budget right now to handle any more in terms of streetwise that we're doing. I think with the streets and the trees, it's an ongoing process. Unless we make those trees disappear, the roots of the trees disappear, we're going to be out there 24/7 trying to accommodate all the sidewalks in Culver City. I think the city's doing the best job it possibly can, going around either putting asphalt on the humps or grinding them down. I think the trees in a lot of neighborhoods are really, really a big concern. I mean, we can only do so much with the sidewalks. Those trees are so invasive, and the root systems are incredible. So I think short answer is the city is doing probably the best they can with the resources that they have, but when we're working an uphill battle and chasing those tree roots down, it's sort of a lost cause.
So I think there's to spend too much time on all this because this will be our last question. We'll let you guys speak for a little bit again.
Okay, so I'll be brief. I think there's a lot that we can do better in terms of both the trees and the sidewalks, because I've been at City Council in disparate instances where a number of people from a particular neighborhood are coming out because they want to save a tree, and then a number of people are coming out because they really want to get rid of a tree. And I think in both instances, what I've seen is a a little bit of an inadequate response from staff in terms of actually going out and looking and seeing what the problem is. And I think there might be a way to streamline that, because frankly there are a lot of like older growth trees that pull up our sidewalks. And if we don't think of solving this problem from a systematic point of view, then we're going to basically be repairing the same sidewalk every 5 to 7 years. I think long-term we need to look more deeply, and we started doing this last year, at the type of trees that we plant and the rate at which we could replace a tree with a very disruptive root system with a similar tree that would provide a similar amount of shade in the area. How many years? Or can we, plant an older tree? Like, what are those type of things that we do? But in general, the response time that I've seen from the city in context of trees has been not great. But on the flip side, some of the sidewalk that I've seen that's been put in that's flexible concrete, I'm not sure how much I like it. But I think the city could do a better process overall, and I'd be open to looking more deeply into it as a council member and making suggestions that are different from what we've done in the last 2 to 3 years.
Just like with trying to manage traffic with tech, we should definitely, which obviously we should do, we should continue, traffic control automation system that's budgeted and is being rolled out. We also need the same approach with sidewalks. Sidewalks are the workhorse of mobility. Even if you're just walking out to your car, that little space, which for some of our neighbors is popping up and is dangerous. It's really important that our sidewalks work. For the least among us, that's the primary mode of getting around. And even for some lawyers who work in the California Attorney General's office, I use the sidewalks all the time. So we definitely need to do that systemic survey of sidewalk conditions, because I've heard there's an ABC sort of priority list that Public Works uses. I'm not sure, based on what I've heard from people out in the community, that list is quite as really. I'm not an expert, so I would defer to Charles Robertson, but it would be nice to know that these have been updated, because obviously it's dynamic. Sidewalk deterioration is dynamic. So I've seen some pretty bad sidewalk conditions that were apparently C priority. But returning to technology, the idea of these sort of flexible sidewalks, we should look at it if they're cheaper, if they're permeable, especially to water and rainfall. And if they don't need the same frequency of repair, and if they can handle the tree roots until we get a new tree on a given street established, I think we should look at that as a potential interim option.
Obviously, having sidewalks buckling up, having trees overtaking the sidewalk is a liability for our city. The part of the issue, I would say, we have is a transparency issue. Though there is a work list that Public Works has, a lot of us don't know where we are on that work schedule without calling. Maybe an app, so we can kind of see where we're at with it. As far as Measure M funds, this is a matter of prioritization. These transportation funds, part of that could be used for advancing the repair on certain sidewalks. So we need to be extremely careful on, with the Measure M funds, our increment, if you will, how we deploy it and not forget about those sidewalks. Because again, it's liability. When someone falls and hurts himself, there's a reasonable likelihood they might want to sue the city. So we think about the Measure M funds not just for whether it's a bike lane, whether it's for a traffic mitigation thing. We need to also think about using it for sidewalks as well.
Okay, yeah, I think we've run out of time, not out of questions. We've given you an order for closing statements, which is the reverse of the opening statement. So if you can, 2 minutes if you would, please.
In closing, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening and staying here for the whole event. It's really it's great that the community gets involved. I'd like to thank Mr. Doyle and Mr. Kissel and Mr. Greenspan for hosting this and all the Culver Crest Association. Am I perfect? No. I'm far from perfect. Do I know everything? No, I don't. But I guarantee you I'm willing to work. I'm willing to sit down with staff. I'm willing to sit down with you, the residents, and find out what's important to each and every one of you and to get the job done. You know, I come with a lot of experience, both ups and downs. I know both ends of the spectrum. I know that I can provide the leadership and the accountability and the willingness to work and learn that you all want and should want in a council member. So I urge you to go out and vote April 10th. Remember, there is another election, April 3rd, right? 3rd and the 10th, so don't get too confused. Just vote April 10th. No, vote April 3rd also. But in closing, just thank you, everybody. Thank the community. Thanks for everybody showing up, and I really appreciate all the input. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. First of all, I'm going to thank Ken and his team, because as Alex was mentioning, I mean, this is high speed, folks. This is like putting the word out. But more importantly, this is what Culver City's about. People caring. Ken, I don't think you're making a whole bunch of loot on this, but I think it's just, he cares. That's a neighbor of ours doing stuff like that. And I smile like this because we're all ambassadors of our great city. Do we have problems? Yeah, we do. But is it worse? Is it really, really bad? No. Okay. When I say proven leadership, I mean proven leadership. Retired lieutenant colonel. For some, it doesn't matter, but I can tell you, for me, from my heart, what that means is, when I say I'm going to do something, I do something. My word is golden. I don't say something to you just to get your vote or convince you otherwise. You're either going to like me or you aren't. You aren't. There might be some issues we disagree on, but I can assure you, I will listen to other opinions. Not just an easy opinion that I've come up with an idea on my own. I don't know. I'm kind of a slate. I have my own experiences, like we all do. I have my own lens. I see things with a different lens than other people, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, I'm working for you. I'm not using this as a stepping stone of anything. This is our city. I'm here because I care, just like these other gentlemen care. But I really, really care, and I take this to heart as far as what responsibility I would have if you voted for me. Thank you.
I'm originally from sort of rural Ventura County, outside of Camarillo, and I was a 4-H'er. And I went off to school in Berkeley and ended up studying in a major that focused on poli-sci and econ, and especially the cities of developed countries. Both the intangible qualities that make cities so magical and productive, and the nitty-gritty of what makes a city tick. So I kind of fell in love with public spaces and cities in that time. But Berkeley was also far removed from Camarillo. So when I moved back down to Los Angeles, originally Palms, for law school at UCLA, my wife and I, when we had the opportunity to buy in Culver City, we thought, this is it. This is the city that has it all. We've got, a small place where we can make our voices heard. We've got a city that was originally laid out around a streetcar. It's got the bones of a place that, in some parts of the neighborhood of the city, that to really have that kind of lifestyle of being able to walk and enjoy public space, but also has unique neighborhoods throughout the city. I then, after law school, I clerked for a judge, and then worked in corporate bankruptcy law, dealing with lots and lots of conflict and resolving it through whatever means necessary, whether it be litigation or, more often than not, consensus. And maybe consensus by bludgeon, but consensus. And now I work in the California Attorney General's office, and basically protecting clean air, clean water, and working with CAL FIRE and forests. you guys have an oil field on your backyard, and I think one thing that we didn't get to is that oil field. And my experience doesn't just make me well suited to be a city council member because I'm used to talking and listening to people, consuming large amounts of information and making it easier to understand, and really doing my best to apply everyone's best interest to a problem. I'm well situated to deal with the oil field, which is an issue that the next council is definitely going to address. It's what I do professionally. I care very much about your safety, and we need to plan for a future long-term where we're not responsible for the cleanup of that oil field and where it's closed down for some public interest. Thank you.
So I get to be last. I want to say and reiterate, as everyone else has said, thank you for coming out to hear us tonight. I know there are a lot of different things that we disagree about as individuals in a city, but I think one of the things that we all value in Culver City is the sense of community. And from time to time, during the course of this campaign, I'd like to juxtapose the sense of community here versus what's currently happening in DC, just to bring us a little closer together. Because most people, no matter their political persuasion, seem to agree. To extrapolate on that, I'll talk a little bit about some of my experience. As I said, I currently work at a nonprofit. Professionally, I'm a social worker and a filmmaker. I'm also a veteran, but I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force and the Air National Guard. I was a SATCOM Wideband Telemetry and Space Systems apprentice. I was just a staff sergeant, enlisted, but we still had to go to basic. My POV around Culver City is taking all of the great elements of the community that already exist here and just, making them better, capitalizing on that. I'm very passionate. I come from a background of environmental activism. And with environmental activism, we talk about taking care of everyone, but also taking care of the seventh generation. And I think that idea resonates with Culver City. What is the city right now? What do we want it to be in the near future? And what do we want to leave for our children and our children's children to come? A lot of that particularly has an impact on what we do with the Inglewood oil field. And I think I'll just say it out loud. We need to close it down. And as a city council member, that is what I will actively fight to do.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for coming out and participating. And I think that since this is an official meeting, I move to adjourn. Second. Thank you, everybody.